We begin with the latest on the meeting in Alaska. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin met for nearly 3 hours before holding a joint press conference without announcing a deal to end the war in Ukraine. Now, both men did mention aspects of a potential deal, but nothing specific. Both presidents said they had a good, cordial, and productive meeting. And joining us now with the very latest on all of the news, wrapping up from Anchorage today, is Dr. Fred Hoffman from Mercyhurst University. Thanks for staying up late, sir.
My pleasure.
Appreciate you coming in on a Friday evening at 11 o'clock. So let's begin, sir, with just your key takeaways from today. No deal done, doctor.
No deal done. And the thing is, we used to say in the military that close only counts in horseshoes, hand grenades, and thermonuclear weapons, right? So it's kind of binary. You have a deal or you don't have a deal. Personally, I didn't expect a deal because if you think about it, the Russians coming in position, what they wanted and what the Trump administration was willing to agree to, I think there was too much of a gap in between. So I'm not surprised by the fact that there is no deal. They're close, but here's the thing. It's not just the U.S. and Russia to make the decision. They've got to talk to NATO. They've got to talk to the EU. Most importantly, they've got to talk to the Ukrainian government and President Zelensky.
From a NATO perspective, how do they look at this today?
Well, NATO's got some legitimate concerns. This is right in their backyard, okay? And both we and our NATO ally partners have been helping the Ukrainians now for over 3 years. So we'd like to see the fighting come to an end, but not at just any cost.
As far as Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky wasn't invited to the summit today, he's on the outside sort of looking in now. Where's he stand?
Well, that's an interesting dynamic because Vladimir Putin is a former KGB officer, right? And he himself had said when he first became president, he said you could take the man out of the KGB, but you can't take the KGB out of the man. So he's a trained human intelligence officer. He looks at President Trump in a way of how do I manipulate him. He's also going to be patient because he knows he's not going to get it all at one shot. So in a sense, I think the Russians came away with some pluses in this meeting because Putin has been basically an international pariah since 2022, certainly since 2023 when the ICC, International Criminal Court, put out a warrant for his arrest. Okay, so he got some bonus points by coming to Alaska and meeting with Trump.
Now, did it surprise you, though, having that being said, Doctor, that he said if President Trump was in office in 2022, this war may not have happened?
That was part of the manipulation. Absolutely part of his manipulation. And I just sat back and go, oh, here we go. Now, here's another thing to think about. And there's a lot of different nuances to this type of a relationship. But, you know, it's like kabuki theater in Japan, right? When you're talking about high-level diplomacy, a lot of it is messaging, right? So, for example, when Trump and Putin are walking from the aircraft and overhead comes a B-2 and 4 fighter aircraft.
He's getting ready to get in the back of the beast there, too.
Exactly. So that was some of the messaging, like, hey, we're a significant power here. Don't forget about that. But also, the way Putin said things that he knew would kind of play to Trump's ego, okay? And that's what Putin does. That's what a trained KGB officer does.
Does the president deserve a little bit of criticism, Doctor? It's a question I've asked you before. He said as soon as he comes into office, the war is going to end. Still no deal done. Does he deserve criticism?
Well, a lot of variables are out of his control. I mean, he's managed to work with other aggrieved parties, Azerbaijan and Armenia, for example, right? They've fought countless times since the late 1980s over some territory. He's got them to sit down and agree to work with us on a gas pipeline, which, by the way, cuts the Russians out of the picture, right? So you've got to look at the totality of what Trump does, not just limited to what he's doing with Ukraine. Ukraine is kind of a vexing issue for him.
Doctor, I need you to look into your magic ball here, sir. Where do we go next? What happens now?
Well, here's the thing. There's no ceasefire, right? The Russians had made some incremental progress on the battlefield recently in the vicinity of Pokrovsk. The Ukrainians have beaten them back. The Ukrainians are not going to just roll over and die for the Russians because, as I've said before, the Russians stop fighting, the war ends. The Ukrainians stop fighting, Ukraine ends.
It's something you've told me too, Doctor, and such an interesting point because you predicted way back in 2023 when we first started talking about this that Ukraine could potentially still win this war. And to this point, they're still in it.
They're still in it. If they receive adequate support from the West, militarily, financially, diplomatically, Sanctions, sanctions are kind of on a spectrum, right? So if there's either full sanction enforcement, which there isn't, or there's what we have now, which is kind of half-hearted. So, and what's interesting too with this meeting is Trump had said, if there's no agreement, we're going to go forward with the sanctions, which we didn't, right? So this is a kind of a multifaceted picture we're looking at.
Very interesting points as always. That's why we call on you on a Friday night at 11
There you
o'clock,
go.
Doctor.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.